Good morning and welcome to the Coaches Show on Benton County Enterprise TV. I'm Lane Johnson here with head coach Brad Drehle of the Lincoln Cardinals. We are in week 10, the first round of the playoffs, district play. The 1 seed and 6th ranked in state Lincoln Cardinals, 8-1, taking on the 8th seeded Slater Wildcats, 2-7. First, Coach, let's touch on week 9. In week 9, you guys traveled to Wellington to play Wellington Napoleon. The offense came out and looked really sharp and polished. On the first drive, if memory serves me, I think you guys converted 2 fourth down, at least 1 and maybe a long third down to put together a really nice sustained drive that ended in 8 points. What were you trying to accomplish? Was there a specific look or, you guys really like to go tempo and try and script that first series? What were you trying to do in that script or in that first series?
Part of it, one of the things we're trying to do is see how they're going to line up to certain formations, how they're going to adjust to motion. And then take a look at secondary, how they're going to rotate, whether we're getting man or whether we're getting zone. So we were trying to answer those questions and again, play with tempo at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, and that seems to serve you guys really well when you come out and you really hurry it up. You guys know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and worked well this week, or last week I should say. Every week we talk about how you've got a lot of guys who've developed into weapons, and that you're getting contributions from a lot of different angles. This week, one that really jumped out to me was Kyle Eckhoff. You guys played him you were still playing him at his wingback position, but playing him in the backfield as a running back more this week than you have all year. What was that?
The biggest thing is just getting him healthy.
Yeah.
Kyle's a good athlete. He has the ability to do several different things for us. So we want to take advantage of all of those, and it was kind of our plan all along to get him into the backfield. It was just a matter of getting him healthy.
Yeah. Well, and he shined in that role, and I think it gives you guys another look that teams have to prepare for.
That's correct.
On the defensive side, looked good yet again, save for a really long touchdown run and then a score at the end with some of those junior varsity guys in there. Wellington really struggled, to get much going on offense. In your mind, who stood out to you on that side of the ball?
Well, I think it's a collective effort. We had a lot of kids contribute. Our defensive line, I'm not sure that they get all the credit that they deserve because of what we're asking them to do. They don't always end up with the numbers, but they're doing a great job of occupying blocks and canceling gaps so that the guys behind them can run and make plays. Obviously, I think if you watch this play, Cam Everhart's playing really well. He's playing fast from the back side of things, and Ross and Kyle are doing a great job. And Connor didn't have any big numbers, but he had a tackle for a loss. He had an interception. He hurried up the quarterback a couple of times. Put himself in a great place. Riley's played good all year, and I thought Darren and Mundy did a good job in coverage. So I think it was just a collective effort where they all came out and played fast and hard. Well,
in a lot of your games, we look at the defensive stats, which we'll do here in a second, and you've got 3 or 4 guys with 10, 11 tackles, and it's clear that the game plan of big guys swallowing gaps, controlling, taking on double teams, and keeping your safeties and your linebackers clean, it shows up on the stat sheet. This week it was more kind of even across the board. You had some defensive linemen get in there with some nice numbers. Speaking of Connor, a play that sticks out in my mind, you guys were moving him around a little bit, playing him closer to the line of scrimmage, I think, this week than
at times.
Yeah, and he was still at his normal spot a lot, but there was a play that stood out to me where he was up on the line, and I guess he had edge contain. If he didn't, he was the one that contained the edge, took on a block, rode it all the way out to the sideline, and then
tackle for loss.
That may have been the tackle for loss you were talking about. So that was a really nice play that stood out to me. So good job there by him. Let's go ahead and quickly just run through some of the stats for Wellnap on the defensive side. Starting with Kyle, he had 6 tackles. Matt Kessie had 5 with a pass breakup and a forced fumble.
Recovered fumble.
Yes, it was a fumble recovery. Sorry, the forced fumble was actually Camden Everhart, and Anthony Schrader got one. Jacob Plum also had one.
Yep.
Ross had 7 tackles and a tackle for loss. Jacob Plum had 5 tackles and a tackle for loss. Ashton Wolf, freshman, had 5 tackles. Eli Tolliver only 2 tackles, but it seemed like him and Jacob Plum really were affecting
things. Yeah,
yes,
and disrupted a lot of flow.
Maybe it didn't show up with tackles, but really were involved in that defensive line.
Yeah, those 2 kids have really come a long ways this year. They've given us a lot of mileage. They've done a good job
on both sides.
Yep, they have
definitely. So let's see if I can say a couple more names. Larry Roberts, 3 tackles. That's always nice to see those guys getting a few. I'm sure some of that was on kick return or kickoff. Excuse me. Dawson Parrott, 3 tackles and a pass breakup.
So Darren had one of his better nights too. I think he had 4
Yes.
or 5 tackles. I think they were solo tackles.
Yes, 4 tackles, 3 of them solo. So yeah, good game by him. Isaac Comm got in there with a couple tackles. He also had a tackle for loss. Matthew Cook, I got to say his name on the stream, and he had a tackle for loss.
Yes,
so,
he did, yeah.
So good game all around there, offense and defense. Quickly, we'll touch on the offensive stats from last week. Starting with the rushing game, Johnson led the team, 17 carries, 131 yards, and 3 scores. We talked about Kyle Eckhoff. He out-rushed as far as rushing attempts Connor this week. He had 12 attempts for 79 yards and a 2-pointer. Connor lined 10 rushes for 78 yards and a score. Very efficient there. You guys got some of your young guys in towards the end of the game. Anthony Schrader toted the rock 7 times for 22 yards. Camden got involved with 3 carries for 12 yards. And then Caleb Mundy also took a counter, I think, for 1 carry for about 10 yards. So
Yes, yep.
Good job there. Passing the ball, Connor lined 9 for 16, 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. Another really efficient game. No turnovers. And I think you had 1 turnover the whole game, and that was right when you were trying to kind of swap units.
Yeah,
and
we
it
were
was just
switching
a
young
snap
kids. Okay,
that just maybe a miscommunication or something.
Yeah.
But other than that, a really clean game. Receiving, Darren getting it done yet again in a very efficient fashion. 2 catches, 72 yards, and a score. Mundy had 5 catches for 34 yards. Dawson Parrott had a really nice, I think that was a bubble.
The bubble screen. I tell you what, Chase Young did a nice job on the block too.
Yes.
Without it doesn't go, but he did a great job there.
Absolutely. And that was 1 catch for 26 yards and a score. Matt Kessie also caught a touchdown pass, 1 catch for 15 yards. So really, we talk about spreading the ball around. You had 3 guys have 10-plus carries and 75-plus receiving yards. Darren always getting it done. Mundy involved with 6 touches for almost 50 yards. Matt Kessie catching a touchdown. So very, very good job getting the ball spread around there. So we talked about Wellnap. We're going to talk about Slater here, the upcoming matchup, after this commercial break.
Are you missing that human touch with your bank? Come talk to a real person at Community National Bank and Trust. We're your local bank that's small enough to know you, yet big enough to offer the best products. Stop by and see us at 101 South 65 Highway in Lincoln or 1695 Hilltop Drive in Warsaw. Your community, your bank, your relationship. Community National Bank and Trust. Federally insured, locally awesome. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Okay, so here's what we can expect going into round 1 of districts. Slater last week fell to Crestridge 52-19. Slater, a familiar foe, Coach. You guys played him in week 6, just 4 weeks ago, a game in which Lincoln dominated on both sides of the football, very efficient. The final score of that game was 46-0. Slater has had a tough year. They've been outmatched in a few of their games, but it's important at this time of the year to practice what you've preached all year, which is stay in the moment, focus on one game, never look too far ahead or look behind, which has kind of been your mantra. So with the playoffs upon us and your mantra in mind, having played this team earlier in the season and for all intents and purposes just pretty much dominating them, it would be easy to imagine a group of young men to kind of start looking at the next round. But have you found that that's the case this week?
Our kids have been pretty focused, and it is hard when you play somebody again, but you have to realize that we've grown a lot in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, our team has changed. Our kids have gotten healthy. We got Crayons back. We've got Dallas back. Kyle's back to full strength. I mean, our kids are really starting to be healthy and play fast, and they're different. And I think what we're doing offensively is going to be different than what Slater saw the first time.
Yeah.
And it's just because of the health of our kids. And so the challenge here is every week you have to lock it into 48 minutes.
Yeah.
And you have to earn the next 48 minutes. So it's play these the best that you can. At the end of the night, the only number that matters is that we want to know. And if we focus on that and we don't care who gets the stats, we don't care what the score is, it can be this week we can finish 2-0, we don't care. It's the idea that we want to be 1-0 at the end of the night. And if we can stay in that mindset and stay focused on the next play, the next thing, then we're going to give ourselves a chance, and that's what we want to do.
And have the guys bought into that?
They have. They've done a good job, and our practices have been crisp and clean. We had a little bit of rain and weather on Tuesday, and probably my fault, but you're looking at the forecast, it says heavy rains and heavy winds, and then we get out there and we start to practice, and we're speeding things up, and by the time we get done, the sun's starting to pop out. But
yeah.
I think at this time of year, it wasn't a bad thing to have a short day, because we sure came back, on Wednesday and had a good day of practice, and Thursday morning's practice is good, so I think we're in a pretty good place from a mindset standpoint and from a health standpoint.
Well, it's nice to hear, and you hear about teams at this point, and I think maybe that loss to Tipton, we've harped on it all year, but I think hopefully that's kept the guys' heads level, but no complacency at this time of the year. I mean,
it doesn't seem like it, as soon as you say that, you go out and lay an egg, but I think the kids are focused, and I think our seniors have realized the importance of being focused all the time, and their dedication to the film study and the game plan is been good, and I think it's shown.
So we've talked about preparation this week. Let's talk about Slater a little bit. Just 4 short weeks ago, felt like a long time ago,
Yeah.
but it really hasn't been that long since you faced them. We know what they've got offensively. They're athletic. They've got some big guys up front. They'll throw kind of the kitchen sink at you if you're not careful. What are you mentioned that your offense is going to look quite a bit different than it did in week 6. Is there anything you're expecting based off their last few weeks of film?
The thing about it is a team like this doesn't have anything to lose.
Right.
And so you come in and you expect to see anything. You can see double pass, you can see halfback pass, you can see reverse pass, you can see just about anything.
Yeah.
From the special team standpoint, we've talked about onside kick, making sure the ball's kicked, and all the different things. The deal is to come out and take care of business. Regardless, in any 1-8 game that you're going to find across the state of Missouri right now, that 8 team has got that doubt in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get jacked up, they're going to go through practice, their coaches are going to get them ready to play, but that doubt is still there. And what you want to do is you want to go out and you want to attack them and you want to make that doubt come to the forefront. And if we can do that, we'll be able to take care of business and do what we want to do. But if you allow a team that's athletic to gain some traction, then all of a sudden you're in a dogfight that you don't want to be in. And that's the challenge for us on Friday night is we need to come out and do what we did the first time. We need to get a 3-and-out stop. Then we need to take the ball and go score and put the pressure on them rather than letting that pressure build on us.
Well, we talk about how you don't always have the luxury of having a roster or anything like that. Do you have any information on whether or not they're injured or they've got new guys coming back?
The only thing that I can tell you is looking at the film the other night, when they came and played us, I think they had 25 kids.
Mm-hmm.
In the film, they had 17 kids. They had 11 on the field and 6 on the sideline. So I don't know what they're dealing with. With everything that goes on and COVID and flu and all those things, you don't know whether it's injuries, you don't know whether it's sicknesses. But it did have an effect on them, and I had a definite effect on the outcome of their game with Crestridge.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that we should be looking for personnel-wise? I know we talked about it so recently.
They've got some athletes. Again, 1 and 6 do a good job. The running back is a good player. They gave us a little bit of trouble because they play that zone scheme. And we don't see a lot of zone. Most of what we see is gap scheme stuff. We see pull, we see a little bit of veer. So it's different in the fact that you have to have gap integrity. You can't be running up the field because when you do, they just turn and wall you off and it creates a gap. And that's what we try to stress to the kids, especially yesterday or in our final practice there of getting those kids into heel depth and then find the football rather than continuing to run upfield. So I feel good about where we're at. I think if our kids will come out and do the things that we're capable of doing, that we'll make it a tough night for Slater.
And when you face a zone run scheme versus what you're calling a gap run scheme, does it change? Are you still preaching gap control and staying?
Yes, it's just that the difference is a lot of times against a team that's pulling and doing those things that you're getting upfield and then you're attacking down the line of scrimmage to a puller. When they're in a zone scheme, they don't necessarily come off the ball with the same aggression to move you. They come out to wall you off. So if you take a hard line to a gap where we're canceling underneath the down block on a tackle, now we cancel that gap. They don't worry about it. They turn the tackle out. They turn the guard out on you. And so because of what you've done, you've opened up a 4 or 5 foot hole.
Right. Just
because you've attacked it. It's just a different scheme, and we don't see it very often. It takes a minute for the kids to adjust.
Okay. Well, we'll look for that this week. We're going to take one more commercial break, and then we'll talk about the district landscape.
Veracruz Trace Mexican Restaurant in Lincoln, Missouri is proud to support Lincoln and Warsaw High School football. The friendly staff at Veracruz serves delicious and authentic Mexican cuisine Sunday through Thursday from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday through Saturday from 11 to 10. Try it for yourself at 455 North Highway 65 or call it in at 660-547-0315.
All right, Coach, before we get on to the landscape of the district, I want to congratulate you on winning the conference championship this week. Tipton was able to fell Adrian kind of in a surprising fashion. I know Adrian was dealing with some injuries, but that gave you guys, it was looking like after you took care of business in Wellington, you'd have a
share of the conference.
Right, but outright conference champions. Congratulations on that. That's an awesome thing. Even though we talked about doesn't really matter as much now because you lose this later, and it did.
Right,
what does winning the conference mean? So glad that you guys did that. But let's go ahead and touch on some of the season totals again before we move on to the district. We'll start with the defensive side of the ball. We'll start with your defensive backfield. Riley Sanders, the freshman, didn't start week 1, but really came along there in the first third of the season and proved that he needed to be on the field. He's got 48 tackles and a sack, couple tackle for losses, couple interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. That's a pretty well-rounded stat line for a freshman. That the future looks good. Continuing on in the backfield, Caleb Mundy, 22 tackles. He's got 4 pass breakups, 2 tackle for losses, and 3 interceptions on the season. We'll move down here now to Darren Roberts. He's got 31 tackles on the year, 5 pass breakups, an interception, and a fumble recovery. Connor Line, again, another one of the big contributors on the defensive side who hasn't played the entire season on that side of the ball, but his impact is felt every week. He's got 40 tackles, 9 tackle for losses, playing from safety. That is truly impressive. He's leading the team in tackle for losses. He's got a couple of interceptions, including a game-sealing interception a few weeks ago against Colcamp. Now we'll move into the linebacking core. I know Kyle's kind of a safety, kind of a linebacker. He's got 65 tackles, a half a sack, an interception, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 pass breakups. Camden Everhart, he's got 62 tackles. He's really building on what was an impressive freshman campaign at that linebacker position. 62 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 8 tackle for losses. He's got a fumble recovery and 2 forced fumbles. Ross Johnson, he's got 84 tackles, leading the team. He's got 6 sacks, 6 tackle for losses, and 3 forced fumbles. And then your defensive line, you're getting contributions from a lot of guys. Oh, I skipped Mac. Mac has 41 tackles, 4.5 sacks, 5 tackle for losses, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and a pass breakup that led to an interception. Defensive line, Eli Tolliver, 26 tackles, couple of sacks, couple tackle for losses. And we talked about it when we were recapping last week's game, but it doesn't always show up on the stat sheet what these guys are giving you every week. And it's been really impressive. And you're just able to get new bodies in there. Jacob Plum, 30 tackles. He's got a tackle for loss. Ashton Wolf, 28 tackles, 3 tackle for losses. Ben Eckhoff, he's played less, but he's got 21 tackles and 2 tackle for losses and an interception. Christian White, 16 tackles, 5 tackle for losses. That's pretty good conversion rate there. And some of these younger guys are getting in there and they're contributing too. But that's kind of your starting unit. Those guys really.
Yeah, and Plum and Eli have done a good job in those 2 tackle spots. They put pressure on it, and you can't just single block them. You got to account for them, and that's what makes all the difference in the world. It allows those kids behind them to run and make plays, and that's kind of the way our defense is designed right now. And Connor does a great job coming down from the safety spot. Some of those stuff happen on fast screens because of the way that we do that, and because of his strength, we're able to really attack those, and it puts pressure on teams. It kind of takes that element away. Kind of does the same thing for the jet sweep stuff. When we hit it right, he gets down there so fast.
Yeah.
It's tough for people to do.
He sees it quickly. He plays sideline to sideline. His instincts are really good. He's one of those kids that you just don't see get fooled very often.
No, he's a good football player, and that's the great thing about playing seniors. The bad part is you only have them until the end of the year, but the great part is they've seen a lot of things and they don't get fooled. They stay within their keys and they play fast and physical.
Right, and that defense has really done a good job this year. Excuse me. Moving on to the offensive side of the ball, we'll start with the rushing attack. Johnson leading the team with carries, 182. He's also got 1,057 yards with 17 touchdowns. Moving down, Connor Line has had a really efficient. He's averaging 8 yards a carry. 70 attempts for 563 yards with 11 touchdowns. We'll touch on his passing stats here in a second. Kyle Eckhoff has really only played a couple of games in that position, where maybe not even 2 full games at that spot, but he's got 20 carries for 200 yards, and that's good enough for 9.8 yards per carry. He's got 2 touchdowns. And then some of these younger guys, Mundy's not a younger guy, but you guys kind of sprinkle him in and give a look that you don't give a lot. He's only got 4 carries, but 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's what can you say about just getting that reverse or that counter out of your slot position? That's impressive.
You know, the idea is to hold down the pursuit from the backside just a little bit, and he does it enough that he forces people to be honest.
Yeah.
And if you make a mistake, he can go score.
And he's very
shifty.
Yeah, very shifty and aggressive for his stature. You know, just he runs hard and love to see that. Riley Sanders has 11 carries for 62 yards and a couple of scores. Anthony Schrader's got 28 carries for 99 yards. So you're able to get those young guys in, and Sanders and Anthony, and I'm sure Camden too. But those guys, how do I want to say this? Forecast to be, the offensive guys in coming years, and it's good to see them get. I really like when, we may not see it the rest of the year, but I really like it towards the end of games where you're able to get them a series or two behind that varsity line because it really showcases what they're capable
of. Yeah, you can see their true abilities.
And that's really fun. Moving on to the passing, Connor Line having a really, really good year. 90 completions on 138 attempts. That's 65% completion. He's got just under 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. So that's doing a really good job. Kyle's thrown a pass. He's 100% completion, 27 yards and a score. Riley Sanders doing a good job, 4 for 13, 42 yards, a touchdown. He does have 2 interceptions, but that's a lot of those passing attempts are late in the game, 3rd and long.
And some of it is we run our young kids in there and both of the interceptions that he's got were against the other team's starters versus our young kids, and so that's a completely different deal. And sometimes it's a pressure sack and not a coverage sack. So. That's a little bit deceptive for him.
Definitely. Receiving, leading the team in receptions, Caleb Mundy, 32 receptions, 356 yards. He's got 3 touchdowns on the season. And then leading the team in yards, Darren Roberts has 24 receptions for 617 yards. That's 25 yards a catch. 6 touchdowns. Matt Kessy, 9 for 150, 2 scores. Kyle Eckhoff, 23 for 280 with a score. Dawson Parrott getting involved, 4 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown. And then Anthony and Johnson combining for about 20 receiving yards. Really, really getting some good seasons out of your seniors and getting an opportunity to see what those young kids will look like in the future. So, offense really looking polished here of late, especially I can't say it enough. Just how buttoned up it looked against Wellnap. So now we've talked about the stats, we've talked about the conference championship. I just want to spend a little bit of time getting your thoughts on the district. You guys have a unique advantage, also, being the 1 seed in this district, which is, I think, by win-loss is the most competitive district in Class 1. But your unique advantage beyond just getting to play the only losing record team in your district and getting to play all your games at home, however many of them you get. You also are the only team here that's playing a team you've already played. So, you look at the 2 seed Russellville, they've got to play a Fayette team that's been competitive. They've played in tight games. Cole Camp, you'd think you get the 3 seed, you're 7-2, you had a successful season, and you're playing a team that's also 7-2 in that 6th spot, who's beaten some teams. They beat Fayette. They've got some impressive wins on the roster. Then quickly, South Callaway and Tipton in that 4-5 spot. Obviously, we think a lot of Tipton. They got you guys. And that, to me, is an impressive win. And then beating Adrian, too, even banged up. That Adrian team is tough and well coached. And those are a couple of good wins. South Callaway, I don't think we know as much about. They just play a different...
Well, they play in a Class 2 conference, so it's a little bit different. I mean, their record is a little bit deceptive. They're a good football team. They've got some good athletes and they've got a good tradition. They got phenomenal facilities. They probably got the best Class 1 facilities in the state of Missouri. That's not going to be any easy task for Tipton going over there. I think that Tipton's got the athletes to go over there and at least compete, if not win that football game. But that's going to be a highly contested game. I wouldn't expect. I'd be very surprised if either one of them was able to blow the other one out. I think it'll be a close game.
Yeah, I think that can probably be said for all 3 of the other matchups. I
just don't know enough about the other conference. Our conference is tough.
Yes.
I mean, you make it through our conference and you're 7-2, and you're sitting there as Cole Camp. You're battle tested. You're ready for this next test, and I don't know what that other conference completely looks like. I don't know what everybody in it is. I know that Fayette and Harrisburg have obviously done a good job, and their kids are playing well. And Fayette had a good season a year ago, so there's some leftover and carryover from that. But it'll be an interesting Friday night.
I'm sure you don't want to get into the business of making any predictions about these teams that you may have to face, and I won't do it either. But I think that if you were to pick those 3 games and have a lot of confidence, it'd probably be fool's gold. It's hard to really look at this and say, oh, that team's for sure going to win, or this team's for sure going to lose, or it's just hard to forecast what will happen.
I agree. And it's and this time of year when you're trying to get film and scout and do all those kind of things, it makes it difficult because you can't just really focus on one thing. Right now we're just kind of sitting and waiting to see. So.
Right. Well, next Friday we'll get to talk about it, and we'll get to have a coach's show where we're reacting to all of that, and hopefully we'll have enough information on the opponent. There's a very good chance. I guess you could say there's a 50-50 chance you're playing another team that you've already played this year. And there's a way that this shakes out where you play 12 games of conference opponents. So that will be interesting to see how all of that shakes out. Coach, I appreciate you talking with us today. We're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. This week, Friday night, the Lincoln Cardinals will host the Wildcats of Slater. Kickoff is set for 7 p.m. If you're not able to attend in person, remember Brett Bryan and I will be live on BCE TV at www.citylinktv.com, and we will be live about 10 minutes before kickoff, as we are every week. Again, Coach, thanks.
You bet.
We'll see you next week.
This has been a BCE TV production. Thank you for watching.